All right, let's hear from David Shaw, longtime head coach at Stanford. He, of course, coached Davis Mills in college. David Shaw is a very well-respected man in coaching circles. Been a college coach for a long time, been rumored and linked to NFL jobs for a number of years. People like this guy. People trust this guy's opinion. Well, he was on with Rich Eisen last week, and he was asked about Davis Mills. He was asked about Mills' rookie season, and also David Shaw talks about where Davis Mills would stack up in this year's quarterback draft class. Here's David Shaw.
He's arguably the second best rookie quarterback this past year behind Mack, and in some places probably outperformed Mack. This was part of our conversations with Davis, whether or not he was going to come back, because this quarterback class isn't great. If Davis would have come back, I feel very strongly that he would be the top quarterback in the draft. So the Texans just got the top quarterback in the draft a year ahead of when he would have been the top quarterback. So now here you've got a quarterback that when you put the film on, I watched like the last 5 or 6 games that he played. This guy's as good as anybody in the NFL in the red zone. Strong arm, better athlete than you think. Really bright kid, smart kid, picks it up, learns from his mistakes. I think they've got a legitimate starter there that's got a chance to be the franchise guy, and hopefully they can put some pieces around him and have some fun down there in Houston.
So there's David Shaw. Now, disclaimer, this is probably obvious, but I'm going to say it anyways. David Shaw obviously is going to stick up for his guy.
Yep.
All right, the guy that he coached, the guy that he recruited. It's obvious that David Shaw was going to speak positively of Davis Mills, but I think what he said, for the most part, is pretty accurate, Cody.
Well, it echoes something that Shaw was discussing and talking about from a year ago when he was asked about Davis Mills leaving early from Stanford. Shaw said, well, if he sticks around for a year, he would have been one of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft. Turns out, Shaw kind of nailed that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't totally believe David Shaw.
Okay.
You want to know why?
Why's that?
This 2021 Stanford team sucked. Like, it was bad.
That many U's and sucked and that many A's and bad, huh?
3-9
They were all
in a down Pac-12.
That's because Davis Mills left.
Well,
If they gave out a most valuable player award in college football, Davis Mills would have won it. He leaves and that team falls apart.
I do know that in one game throughout the course of the season, I don't remember exactly what game it was as I pull up I think it was maybe the USC game, Tanner McKee, the quarterback who replaced Davis Mills, I think in one game outperformed Davis Mills for most of his Stanford career.
Okay. We don't need to look at that.
Okay, just
Sure.
bringing it to the forefront here. I just don't know if Davis Mills, obviously a lot of the stuff that made Davis Mills an attractive prospect to Nick Caserio and made him he ended up being the 8th quarterback off the board, 7th quarterback off the board, 5 in the first round.
8th quarterback off the board. Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that made him the 8th quarterback off the board, and a lot of things that turned into him being one of the better rookie quarterbacks, a lot of those things would have still been present, even with a bad year at Stanford.
Right.
But I do feel like the performance of Stanford does not get increased that much if Davis Mills is the quarterback over the cat that they had playing instead.
You're probably right. Davis Mills' college numbers were not great, and that's why he fell to the 3rd round. Keep in mind, this kid was a 5-star recruit out of high school, so the NFL has had its eyes on this guy for a long time, and because Davis Mills was relatively inconsistent at Stanford, also dealt with a couple of injuries during his time in Palo Alto, that's why he fell to the 3rd round. That's why he was the 8th quarterback off the board last year. But he does possess, and I would have said this at the time last year, a lot of raw traits, a lot of things that you look for in an NFL quarterback, right? He's got the size, he's got a strong arm, he's got the look, he's got some of the moxie that these guys talk about all the time. Like, there were likable attributes from Davis Mills a year ago, and I think we saw some of those things show up this year. So, look, saying that Davis Mills would be the top quarterback in this year's draft class, I don't think it's too far-fetched. Now, if this year's draft class was last year's draft class, it obviously wouldn't be the same, but there's no Trevor Lawrence this year. There's no Zach Wilson this year. There's no Mac Jones in this year's draft class. So I do think there is a good chance that if Davis Mills returned to college, and even if Stanford went 6-6, but he put up good numbers, made some NFL caliber throws, stayed on the field over the course of the entirety of a 12-game season, I think there's a good chance he'd be the first quarterback off the board. Now, I don't think we're talking about he's going 1-1, or in the Texans situation, the Texans have to take him at 3 because he's a can't-miss type of guy. But I do think another year in college would have put Davis Mills in that conversation with Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis as QB1 in this year's class.
I agree with you. I do believe he would have been in the conversation. I don't believe he'd be a for sure lock to go to the Texans at 3 overall or even Carolina at 6 overall, things of that nature where quarterbacks are currently projected at the high part of their projection. It's tough because the college stuff was fine from Davis Mills. Like, it wasn't good. And part of the reason he fell, you brought it up, if he was on the field for all the games last year, part of the reason he fell was there were some teams that had him off the board, X over his name because they were worried about his knee issues.
Yep.
He had some of those knee issues in college. They were worried about his knee issues. So I know some teams didn't even have him on the draft board because of his knee issues. Well, he stayed healthy this year. And by the way, he got murdered a couple times by a couple defensive linemen and popped right back up and was ready to go. Like, didn't come off the field, didn't lay on the ground wallowing in pain like you see some quarterbacks do. He was like up and ready to go. So he's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how I reason a few successful performances in the National Football League versus what he would have done at Stanford for a year. And could some of those things have been a positive? Could he have blown past some of those previous statistical numbers that he's put up? Like, that's something that's working against Sam Howell.
Right.
Like, Sam Howell statistically is not impressive as the first couple of years he was a starting quarterback. That's worked against people. Okay, well, let's take a look and put it in context. He lost a bunch of really good talent off of those teams. They didn't replace him at North Carolina. So, like, he had to do more. It looked worse. Like, I just don't know how Mills – we have the virtue of looking at an NFL season, him performing against good defenses at different times versus Pac-12 football.
Man, if Davis Mills made some of the throws he made this year in college at Stanford this year, he'd be QB1 in this class. That might be a stupid thing to say because the competition's different. He's getting better coaching, right, working with an NFL staff, working with Pep Hamilton. Obviously, there's better talent around him. As bad as the Texans roster was, obviously more talented than what they're throwing out there at Stanford. So if he made some of the throws we saw from him this year at the college level, there's a damn good chance he's QB1 this year.
Davis Mills regret his decision? In his heart of hearts, truth serum in the veins, he tells us, does he regret his decision?
Probably not. I mean, financially, you could make a case because first-round money is obviously better than third-round money. But would he have had the chance to be a starter going into year 2? Would he have gotten a chance to start as many games as he got to start last year in Houston if he ended up in a better team situation? Like if he went late in the first round to a winning team, he might have not gotten the opportunities to play as much as he's gotten to play this year. So I don't think so.
One of the reasons he left was 2021 uncertainty with how COVID would affect college football, how COVID would affect the Stanford situation. Stanford was in one of the areas in California that had some of the toughest restrictions. They didn't even get to practice at their own place a couple of different times in 2020. So he saw that, part of the reason he left. Also, you talk about, maybe he transfers. Maybe he plays somewhere else in 2021. Does he put up those numbers? Can he pick everything up fast enough? I think he probably is happy with his decision because, he might have ended up on the Texans no matter what.
Right. He might have ended up on the Texans no matter what. Maybe with more money. Maybe he's not happy with his decision.
Yeah.
I love how David Shaw threw in some of the white athlete stereotypes towards the end of that answer. Oh, he's a better athlete than you think. He's a bright kid. I was waiting for sneaky speed or gym rat after that. We didn't get it from David Shaw. We'll take your thoughts, 713-780-ESPN. Do you agree with David Shaw's assessment of Davis Mills' rookie season? And also, do you think Davis Mills would be the first quarterback drafted in 2022 if he went back for another season?